Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines. Senator Ping Lacson says he finds a report signed by minority members disrespectful to the Blue Ribbon Committee.
A new report from EDCOM2 shows students' proficiency falls sharply by senior high school.
Team Philippines is off to a strong start at the 13th ASEAN Para Games in Thailand, bagging medals across multiple events.
Former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV and a civil society group have filed a new plunder and graft complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. Here's the report.
On Wednesday morning, former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV arrived at the office of the Ombudsman in Quezon City. He was accompanied by members of the civil society group The Silent Majority. The group carried stacks of documents as they filed a new complaint for plunder and graft against Vice President Sara Duterte. The complaint covers alleged irregularities from her time as Davao City Mayor up to her term as Secretary of the Education Department. The group also cited what it called incidents of public meltdown, including a 2024 press conference where Duterte was allegedly heard threatening President Marcos, First Lady Liza, and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez.
Pinapakita ng complaint na ito na una, ang kabuoang halaga ng mga nilimas o niwaldas ni Sara Duterte ay maihahanay sa mga pinakamalalaking flood control scandal.
The complaint also referenced an affidavit from Ramil Madriaga, described as a former aide and bagman of the Vice President. This is now the second complaint filed against Duterte over alleged irregular use of funds. Back in December, multiple complaints including plunder and graft were also filed against the Vice President and several officials from the OVP and DepEd. Those complaints were linked to the alleged misuse of a total of 612.5 million pesos in confidential funds from both offices. Trillanes said it is also important that bank accounts connected to the case be opened.
Hindi lang ito sabi-sabi. Hindi ito paninira. Kasi kung paninira, hanggang dyan lang yan sa Facebook. Ito, dinala namin sa Ombudsman.
He added that their move to file a case is meant to expose what they claim are anomalies involving the Vice President.
Dahil talagang binabaha nila ng fake news at mga trolls nila yung social media na naging pangunahing source ng impormasyon ng mga kababayan natin. At hopefully, mamulat sila.
Vice President Sara Duterte has yet to issue a statement on the latest complaint, but she has previously denied any wrongdoing in the use of confidential funds. For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
And with us now is Josie Acosta Nisperos, founder and president of the civil society group, The Silent Majority. Hi, Ma'am Josie. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
All right. Okay, of course, in simpler terms, ano po ba yung main complaint ng ating ipinasa, i-file kahapon?
We filed a case against Sara Duterte on graft and corruption and plunder, culpable violation of the Constitution, and other high crimes, and of course betrayal of public trust.
And I think there was also a same case that was filed last December with other groups, composed of journalists, priests, academe, etc.
Right.
So, bakit hindi na lang po natin sinuportahan yun? Why, bakit po natin naisip na mag-file separately?
Right. The previous case that was filed only focused on the confidential funds. So this particular case expanded. It's actually in support of that first filing, but it expands the case to include other transgressions that Vice President Sara Duterte, that we are alleging that Vice President Sara Duterte committed. That includes violations that she committed as far back as when she was mayor. Because we feel that we have established a pattern of behavior and also that these previous transgressions have fallen by the wayside. Kumbaga lumabas na siya, napag-usapan, pero dahil walang nag-file ng kaso, nakalimutan na siya. So we believe it's important to hold our Vice President accountable, not just for the violations she committed now, but also for the violations she committed in her previous roles as a public official.
All right.
Ma'am Josie, does your group also plan to file an impeachment case? Kasi alam natin na at this point in time, there's still a debate whether the Vice President is immune from all of this while she is in office.
Right. There is a plan to file a case, file impeachment against VP Sara Duterte on February 6. I can't say for now who the group is going to be. Now, I actually made a mistake yesterday and said that I specified a particular group, but I think I was mistaken in that. But I do know that there will be an impeachment filing in February 6. As for the immunity, we believe that Sara Duterte is not immune from suit. It's that there is no law that says that she cannot be charged or indicted while in office. We do know that she cannot be removed from office other than by impeachment, but there is no obstacle to having cases filed against her.
So yung impeachment po is not from your group, or are you supporting the group that's filing also?
It's not from our group, but we would support it.
Okay.
All right. In your case that was filed yesterday, you also highlighted of course, included the affidavit from Ramil Madriaga, the so-called bagman of Vice President Sara Duterte. So how critical is this affidavit in your case?
It's very critical. There's been a lot of discussion about the veracity of his testimony, and we believe that's not something that's going to be settled on Facebook. No? The importance of including it in our case is that it will finally be investigated, and the courts can finally make a decision as to the veracity of his testimony. And that's all. That's what's important. It's not the back and forth on social media. We are as interested as anyone to know if what he said is true.
Okay, so the impeachment case that was filed against the president, sinasabi nila na it lacks substance and wala daw masyadong mga documents na supporting the case. But this time around, dito po naman sa final yun na case against the vice president, meron po ba tayong supporting evidence aside from all that na napakita na po before?
Yes. The thing with the ombudsman, the case that we filed with the ombudsman, I believe the ombudsman has an agreement with the Anti-Money Laundering Council that they can subpoena bank accounts. No? So finally, we can find out if it is true that Vice President Sara Duterte, together with her father and her husband, do have these secret accounts, and that they have been receiving obscene amounts of deposits in those accounts. So I think that's very critical.
And siyempre ma'am, ang katanungan ng marami, how did this collaboration with former Senator Trillanes come about? Was siya ba ang lumapit or kayo ang lumapit po?
I've known Senator Trillanes, former Senator Trillanes, since 2016, and we have common advocacies. We fight for common causes, and in the process, we've come to know each other. I consider him a personal friend, and through our discussions, we decided that it's high time to file these cases.
Okay, so confident. All right. So we all know confidential funds are, by nature hard to audit. So I was wondering, what for you and the rest of your group crosses the line from discretion to criminality?
Well, first of all, it's whether you even have I don't know, jurisdiction is the word now, but if your office, specifically the Department of Education, um, has the mandate to conduct, intelligence operations. So then palang questionable na. And then secondly, if you cannot account for them and you submit receipts that are obviously gawa-gawa lang, that certainly raises questions. From a layman's perspective, the silent majority is made up of civilians, professionals. We are not lawyers, but from the civilian's perspective, that really raises questions, and those questions deserve to be answered. Why? Bakit parang niloloko tayo?
Yeah.
Na kung ano-anong mga resibo ang pinapakita sa amin. So for us, that crosses the line.
Oo. Pero kasi yun nga yung no, in her defense, lagi yung sinasabi, confidential nga ito 'di ba? There are certain names that we cannot divulge. There are certain, resources that we cannot say, in public. That's why hindi siya basa-basa na o-audit. So, yun lagi yung nagiging defense na kapag ito yung pinag-uusapan, yung confidential funds. Your thoughts on that?
Right. Confidential funds, when you say confidential, siguro lang misinterpret na dahil confidential funds, everything about it is confidential. No? And that's something that we need to clarify. And I think this case will clarify it. No? Confidential, yes, but you justify kung saan programa ang nilalagay yung confidential funds na yon at anong objectives ng mga confidential ng mga programa na yon. So hindi siya blanket confidentiality. Those are the things kung saan napunta yung confidential funds and para saan napunta doon yung confidential funds na kailangang mailinaw.
And I think ang isa din sa pino-point out nila na crucial dito in terms sa issue nga po ng confidential funds and yung parang in 12 or 11 days na ubos agad yung certain amount na yun. Is that also included in your complaint?
Yes, it's included.
And I remember po, ma'am, si VP Sara was saying that supposedly sa confidential funds, she was supposed to have in possession a ledger of the names of those, like for example, yung piatos, yung mga chips, yung mga chichirya people. She's supposed to have the names and the real names and the alibi names sa book, pero it was never presented. Kasama po ba yan sa sa final nyo na wala naman siyang pinapakita until now in her defense?
Right. In fact, one of the things that we mentioned in our case is that she has been stonewalling the investigation. So she has not really been cooperating, despite all her allegations outside of the hearings. When it comes to the hearing itself, she has been stonewalling and not cooperating. So this is now her opportunity. If she really does have those ledgers, we are giving her the opportunity to present them in her defense.
At saka ma'am, others are saying baka this is ang pinakamalalang kaso na maabot daw ng Vice President is command responsibility because some legal luminaries supporting her side may say na it could have been done, people in her office could have been the ones doing this at hindi daw siya.
Well, command responsibility is, it's a valid a basis to bring these cases against VP Sara. But we also have other evidence that says that she has direct involvement. No? So the first one there you mentioned earlier are the bank accounts.
Okay.
Because one of the charges, one of the counts is that she has been receiving illegal or she has been getting money from illegal sources. So may evidence then, and that's direct involvement. No? That's the accounts are under her name. The other is the allegations of bribery that she has given to that officials. So that's also direct. No? She's the one who authorizes the disbursement of the confidential funds. There's also the matter of incompetence. No? As DepEd secretary, it's more than just command responsibility. If you are not meeting your targets, that's your direct responsibility. If you are only building 192 classrooms out of a projected 6,000, So that's incompetence, that's inefficacy. That is
That's right.
directly under the responsibility of Sara Duterte.
And I understand, ma'am, also, no, it was in the news months back or last year that even the manner of which the confidential funds were used, withdrawn, and disbursed was borderline illegal because cash daw ang umikot. Hindi daw dinaan sa transaction, manager's check, or online online methods.
Right, because that would have provided a paper trail, and that's why that's not allowed in our system to be providing that. So that's one of the points that will be raised.
Okay, so kasama po doon sa allegations cited in your complaint yesterday is itong bribery and corruption for allegedly receiving money from a drug lord during her term as a Davao City mayor. Of course, first, kasama pa po doon sa complaint nyo nung siya po ay Davao City mayor pa. And can you tell us more about this complaint, this allegation?
Right. This is connected to the bank accounts because there has been evidence that will be or can be revealed in the trial. No? When the ombudsman finally hears this case, there is evidence that there is money going into her account and her joint accounts with her husband and her father, and this can be traced to Samuel Yang, who is a known drug lord.
Okay, so pero dun po kasama po yun may mga evidence po kayo and supporting documents to back this allegation.
Right. I believe Sunny Trillanes has actually seen those bank accounts, yung statements, no, pero he is constrained from revealing them. No, with this case, the ombudsman can compel the release of those statements.
And of course, aside from former Senator Sonny Trillanes, meron pa po ba tayong mga ibang known personalities that are supporting the group in filing these cases against the Vice President?
It's really the Sonny Trillanes and the silent majority. And I think being citizens of the Philippines, being just regular people, gives a strong boost to the case because we, as citizens, as lay people, are really interested in how our Vice President is using the taxes that we pay to the government. So this is our money that is being spent, and we have the right to know if it is being spent wisely.
Right. But of course, a lot of people, or some people are saying, or accusing na this complaint is, it's just politically motivated. What do you have to say to that accusation?
I think that is, the intent of that is to put the complainants on the defensive, right? It's to evade the issue. It's to avoid answering the questions. It's to parang shame us into silence. We shouldn't file this because people will think it's politicking. But it's still all right. No, regardless of any insinuations that people will make, we are pushing through with this complaint. We know what our motivations are and our intentions are. And even if they don't believe that we are not merely politicking, makikinabang naman tayong lahat. Diba? And that's the intent. Also, what is wrong with letting people know beforehand the character of the person that you might be voting for? So if that is going to be a benefit of this filing, then we're all for it.
And how confident are you, ma'am, that si Ombudsman Remulla will fairly take a look at this case? Given alam naman natin, si VP, the Dutertes have great political clout with a a high chance of being the next president, just in case. So there might be some pressure also. We're not saying there is, but of course we can't discount that notion.
Well, we're putting our faith in the system. We're putting our faith in the in our democratic institutions. That's one of the reasons that PSN got involved in this, because we are a pro-democracy group, and as such, we believe that we need to put our democratic institutions to the test. So, on the line din ang ombudsman dito.
Yeah.
Will they, diba? It's the opportunity for the ombudsman to show that they can be impartial, that they can be fair, that they can be thorough. And we take heart in the fact that they were able to fight a case against Senator Bong Revilla in a month, I
Yes.
think. No, that was the timeline. So they were able to do that with Bong Revilla for a much lesser amount. So we trust that they will do the same with this case.
All right, so you mentioned earlier that there's a certain group that is going to be filing an impeachment complaint against the Vice President Sara Duterte. I was wondering, bakit hindi na lang po doon kayo nag-focus on filing of impeachment complaint, no, instead of doing this yesterday? Kasi sinasabi na, naku, plunder, medyo mahirap yung kaso na yan because there's a certain amount that you need to to prove na nagasta, etc., whatsoever, yung mga sinasabi ng mga legal luminaries. So, your thoughts on that po?
Right. I think that this complaint, rather than conflicting with the impeachment complaint or being redundant, superfluous, will actually be supportive of that, of the impeachment. Because, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, the ombudsman cannot remove Sara Duterte. It's only by impeachment. However, based on their investigation, they can recommend to the House of Representatives to have Sara Duterte impeached. So that will provide more impetus for the Congress to hear the impeachment complaint against Sara Duterte. That's one. Secondly, with this complaint, because the ombudsman does have the ability to obtain the statement of accounts of the bank accounts, that is something that can then be included in the evidence of impeachment.
So parang sa madalit sabi, ma'am, ibig sabihin parang mas confident kayo na mas magkakaroon ng accountability in filing such case rather than antayin yung mga nasa Congress and maipasa sa Senado na ulit yung impeachment complaint against the Vice President. Tama po?
Absolutely. Apo.
Oo.
And ma'am, what else can we expect from your group while waiting for all this to happen? Do we expect any other moves or caravans or prayer rallies?
Right. Yung grupo ng TSM po has been involved in various forms of protests, no, and demonstrations. Because you can express your grievance in so many ways. No, you can do it in social media. You can do it through street protests, and and we've been doing that since 2016. And another avenue of protest is legal action, and that's also one way that we have tried to register our disagreement or disapproval with some of the things that are happening in our country. As an example, in November 14 last year, we filed a case against Senator Chis Escudero at the COMELEC on the illegal donations that he received for his campaign in 2022. So this is not the first case that we've filed. Actually, in 2018, we were also the group that filed a case against Kalida, which exposed the parang monopoly of contracts, of government contracts that the security agency got from the
Yeah.
government, no? And that actually shattered his hopes of being appointed as ombudsman. So yun ang mga ginagawa ng grupo. So yes, we're present in social media. Yes, we're present on the streets, but also, as I mentioned earlier, because we believe that we need to also hold accountable our democratic institutions, we are putting them to the test by filing cases against officials that we believe need to be held accountable.
All right.
All right.
Thank you for your time, Josie Acosta Nisperos, founder and president of the Silent Majority.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
you.
so much.
Good morning.
Now, Senator Ping Lacson criticized the release of a report by Senate minority members saying such actions could undermine the Senate's credibility. Here's the report.
Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Panfilo Lacson has called out the minority bloc's report on the committee's investigation into the flood control scandal, saying it shows disrespect for the committee and the entire Senate. Lacson asked how he could respect a document that, in his words, symbolizes disrespect not only to the committee, but to the whole Senate. He said the minority senators, as veteran lawmakers, should know there is a proper procedure in adopting a committee report in plenary. Lacson added they are not being stopped from proposing amendments, but there is a proper time for it, and they should not preempt the Blue Ribbon Committee. In a minority report, a matrix was also presented, showing politicians, public officials, and private individuals allegedly linked to the flood control scandal, all pointing to former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Senate President Tito Sotto earlier said the minority report is just a piece of paper with no weight. He said it did not go through the proper process and should not have been submitted directly to his office. In an interview on Storycon, Senator Lacson said Senate President Tito Sotto made the right call. He also remarked that the minority bloc appears to be struggling to move forward.
Na tama yung ginawa niya, ni-refer sa akin. Ngayon, anong gagawin ko doon? Anong disposition? Trust can. May mga bitter eh. Hindi matanggap na hindi na sila nasa majority. They cannot move on.
Senator Risa Hontiveros said she has not yet read the minority report, but she agrees with claim that former Speaker Martin Romualdez bears responsibility.
Leadership has greater responsibility talaga. And kaya rin sinimulan at ipinagpapatuloy ng Blue Ribbon. Nabanggit yung pangalan nila. So, I guess, bukas din yung pagkakataon na dumalo sila sa susunod na pagdinig at ibigay yung kanilang panig.
Romualdez may be invited by the committee but he cannot be compelled to appear due to parliamentary courtesy. And while the minority bloc may be disappointed with how the hearings have been going, Hontiveros said she has a different view.
Satisfied at dahil alam kong magpapatuloy siya. Hindi pa siya na-adjourn, magtatawag pa ng susunod na hearing. Yung coordinates, nakaka-frustrate talaga yung isyung iyan. Tuloy na sayang ang oras, ang resources, pati ang pasensya ng taong bayan.
Hontiveros also challenged contractor Curly Discaya to fully cooperate with the investigation and to stop playing the victim. Discaya earlier said it would be like they were being robbed if they were made to return their wealth.
May ilan na pong nagsabi na medyo makapal daw po yung mukha ni Curly Discaya.
Medyo?
Nang sinabi po niyang parang
Sila
nanakawan.
I know, right? So, kaya talagang ilan sa amin halos mahulog sa silya. I mean, hello, sasabihin niya na ninakawan sila. Parang, parang hinold up tayo. Tapos kailangan pa natin mag-sorry sa hold upper. I mean, tigilin na ng mga Discaya yung ganyang pag-iiwas sa mga tanong.
Hontiveros said they are still looking for a ledger that the Discaya Group had promised to submit. She called it a missing piece in the investigation, as it allegedly contains their transactions from 2016 to 2022.
Senators J.V. Ejercito and Rafi Tulfo sounded the alarm over alleged safety and mental health risks in the BPO industry as they pressed DOLE to investigate reports of labor violations and unsafe working conditions. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes has the report.
Yung mental health is a clear and present danger right now. Marami talagang na ngayon nagsasuffer sa mental health. So lalo ng BPO, medyo iba ang very unique, stressful yung kanilang environment.
Kasi diyan yung namumura ka, sinisigawan ka, nilalait ka. Kumbaga, kuminsan manlilit ka sarili mo eh.
In yesterday's Senate Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development hearing, Senators Raffy Tulfo and JV Ejercito raised concerns over the growing challenges faced by BPO workers. A concrete example laid out by Committee Chair Senator Raffy Tulfo is the September 2025 6.9 magnitude earthquake in Cebu, where a BPO firm reportedly blocked its emergency exits to prevent workers from leaving, while another allegedly forced its employees to immediately resume work after the tremor.
I asked Dole to investigate what happened to the investigation that was conducted.
Yung ating regional director nag-issue po ng work stoppage order, pero ito po mga work stoppage order after po mag-comply ng mga kulang po sa occupational safety and health standards. Na-lift din po noong October 13, pero meron pong isang company na tuloy-tuloy po yung hearing ngayon dahil nakita po na merong labor standards violations, overtime pay, mga leave po benefits na hindi na ibigay sa ating mga manggagawa.
Nung nag-inspect po sa Cebu, many of the companies were found to have OSH violations, pero karamihan po doon yung mga violations yung kawalan ng or kakulangan ng hinahire na full-time doctors and nurses. Right now, the country is experiencing a critical shortage of doctors and nurses.
Several BPO employee groups flagged other alleged occupational safety and health violations by some BPO companies, including not being able to join DOLE's inspection of firms and questionable HMO commitments.
Ang mga manggagawa po ngayon, karamihan sa mga BPO ay co-pay. Kung ikaw ay na-emergency, bayaran mo ang emergency mo. Check-up mo, bayaran mo.
For the HMOs, we would like to provide a comprehensive coverage, inpatient, outpatient, latest modalities of treatment, etc., etc. However, it is dictated by the corporate account to the HMO. So there's nothing we can do if that is what they purchased.
You tell the corporate account that they should purchase full coverage for their members, for the employees.
Aziz also recalled how BPO employees were treated during the pandemic, citing her experience of not being catered to any work-from-home job alternatives after being sent home and removed from hotel reservations.
Dahil po sa pagtatanggol ko sa aking kapwa manggagawa, ako po ay lantarang sinisigawan na sa hallway po. Ang sabi po sa akin ng operations managers ko at ang aking site director, bita-bita kasi, ba't hindi na lang sa kalsada mag-rally? I was red tag as an NPA.
On the defense of the Labor Department, they said reports of such cases were yet to be received by the office. However, they will be conducting an investigation to address the matter. Tulfo urged DOLE to establish a dedicated unit to monitor the compliance of BPO firms with standards that ensure the safety and security of its employees. A next hearing is expected to be set with the same agenda to be tackled. Kapatid Mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes, we are One News.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. EDCOM 2 says Filipino students' proficiency falls sharply by senior high school, dropping from 30.52% in grade 3 to just 0.47% in grade 12. That means only about 4 out of every 1,000 grade 12 students meet expected learning standards. The commission said many learners fail to master basic literacy and numeracy early, causing learning gaps to widen over time. The findings will be included in EDCOM 2's final report on January 26, based on DepEd assessments from 2023 to 2025.
Joining us now is Cocopea Legal Counsel Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada. Good morning, Attorney. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, nice to see you.
Good morning, Angelo, and good morning, Angela, and to all of your viewers. Good to see you again. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Pero this is not happy news, no? Grabe, 4 out of 1,000 of grade 12 students. Ako, what is your reaction to that study?
Well, first, we eagerly await the release of the full EDCOM report. I think it's due to be released on Monday. And on this report, of course, it's always alarming to hear something like this. Pero it's not a surprise, no? Because of the many similar reports that we have received, not only from EDCOM2 and from DepEd, but also from international assessment bodies, diba? So we feel that these are all connected. No?
Yeah.
That's why the intervention and education reform should all be related to this and should find these studies helpful. And we think the problem is really compounding. No? So sabi nila ay pagdating sa senior high, meron pa ring lack of the mastery of the basic skills. So we think that the problem really starts at the very young age of these students. So the intervention should also start at the earliest possible time, or the earliest or the early grade levels of the students. Otherwise, it will be compounding. They get promoted, no? Lalo na sa public schools, they get promoted to the next grade level. Ayun na nga, until they reach senior high school, wala nang, there's no time to really remedy or correct this, these deficiencies.
Yeah.
Well, looking at the problem, attorney, you could point out to many different factors that cause this, from the lack of teachers, the lack of classrooms, yung mga ratio, di ba? But what do you think is one of the more important factors that we need to take a look at least to jumpstart? If not, we cannot correct this in one drop, in one isang hulugan. But where's the best place to start?
I think number one pa rin is resources, Angelo. Kasi pag tiningnan mo yung performance, lalo na sa public schools, from the local government units who have the resources, like for example, Makati and the other LGUs, their support to the public schools is really great. No? So they tend to perform better. So ganun pa rin, yung lack of resources, number one. Teachers, training ng teachers, classrooms, among other things. So resources is the number one problem. But I also have one observation, Angela, and Angela is also shared by many of our teachers and educators. Ako kasi napapansin ko, ang ating mga reforms, they focus on teachers, governance, and structures.
Yes.
But I think we also need to put mechanisms to make our students also responsible for their own learning. Kasi kahit anong gawin natin na tulong, kung yung estudyante mismo ay hindi binibigyan ng value, lalo na sa public schools because it is free. When they don't value their learning, their education, baliwala lahat yan. No? So I think it is not only a responsibility of the state or the government, but also the parents and the students themselves, because the government can only help to a certain extent. But while we are doing all of these reforms, it should also be clear to them that they also have to be diligent, follow their teachers, follow school rules and regulations, so that they also get better.
Attorney, dagtong lang. Attorney, kasi we also teach college, and one thing we've noticed is their dependence on social media and the impact of social media in influencing them. Sometimes kahit may tinuturo ka na, they will even double check you on search engines kung tama ang tinuturo mo, and sometimes may end up correcting you. Do you think we should learn how to integrate social media and all this AI into curriculum?
Yes, certainly, Angelo. And tama ka, I think we have to put certain guidelines in place, particularly yung ethical use, yung mga administrative component of use of technology and AI. Kasi nga, para bang nagagamit pa to devalue learning and the role of our teachers because of access to this. Kung mapapansin niyo, many of the developed countries, di ba, started to ban the use of cell phones in class. So mapapansin mo yung trend, the responsibility is also shared with the students, hindi lang dun sa schools at sa government. I think sa atin, we should start to look at that also. And then another thing is we have to empower our teachers more. Yung teachers na nasa classrooms to make their academic judgment on proper assessment of students and not wait for EDCOM after so many years or DepEd to assess at the national level kung ano yung proficiency ng bata. Dapat yung teacher mismo na sa classroom, ma-empower siya. Ibig sabihin, kung bagsak. Para malaman natin yung intervention na bibigay sa kanila individually rather than, just promote everyone but they don't have the proficiency for the necessary for the grade level until we learn na senior high na. They lack the basic mastery skills.
Totoo yan. Ang nangyayari kasi din, sir, na yung school, medyo parang focus sila doon sa ma-achieve na merit ng school, no?
Metrics
rather, no? So if ever lahat ipasa na lang para ma-achieve yung metrics na goal ng school, if ever, to promote a certain level of efficiency. But it's good that you mentioned also, sir, yung kanina, no, na kailangan din ipakita din natin sa mga estudyante that this is also a shared responsibility. Because I remember there's a program that was initiated by the Vice President Vice President Sara Duterte, no, na when she was still the Deputy Secretary, yung parang catch-up Fridays. So, maganda yung program pero hindi pumapasok yung mga estudyante. No, pasok na lang sila ulit ng Monday kasi ayaw nila magbasa. So, it's good that you mentioned nga na kailangan talaga ng iba't ibang approach because it's hard na parang we keep on doing things, the same things, pero we are expecting a different result. Okay, so my question here po, tinitingnan nila dito sa study na to na i-redefine daw yung proficiency. Do you agree with that? Kailangan ba ibaba natin yung ating standard para ma-achieve natin yung proficiency na sinasabi dito sa mga study na to?
I think we have to be honest in in the assessment of our students. So kung babaguhin yung definition ng proficiency just to improve our assessment results, I think we should not do that. We should first of all we should acknowledge the problem. I think ang sinasabi rin nila kasi yung like for example literacy, before mataas ang literacy rate natin kasi ang presumption sa tool nila, ang metrics nila is basta nag-aaral or nakatapos ng junior high, literate. No, so I think in one of the studies na sabi ng EDCOM, dapat gamitin na natin yung definition ng functionally literate. Ibig sabihin, talagang yung basic literacy, functional literacy ay talagang it manifests. So that respect, tama yon. Pero yung para ibaba to accommodate everyone, I think that has been the root of many of our problems diba? In many years. So dapat wag na tayong bumalik doon.
So you also mentioned earlier in this interview yung sa earlier stage pa lang dapat ng estudyante dapat na-focus na nagkakaroon na talaga ng matinding pag-aaral doon kasi they're looking at parang fragile foundation, no. So paano ma-address ng DepEd ngayon yan kung we keep on looking at these studies tapos lagi natin pinag-uusapan yung mga factors that affect it, that influence the study, blah blah blah. But what can the DepEd do para ma-address talaga to?
Number one, very concrete. There's a push to expand the subsidy, the voucher system to elementary. Kasi sa ngayon, yun na lang kinder to 6 ang walang support from the government sa mga estudyante natin. And by doing that, by expanding it to elementary, yung resources ng government would be more efficient at makakatulong, mamaximize yung tulong ng private sector to decongest classrooms, to address the lack of teachers, and eventually this will help in the proficiency of students and will address all of these problems. So yan ang isa. Marami pang approaches na pinopropose, pero this is one really big step we think kung maisa sa batas ito very soon. Napakalaking tulong po nito sa ating government kasi imagine how will they address the 165,000 backlog in classrooms, for example, So instead of just tapping the private sector to provide that, I think it will really save us a lot of time and resources of the government.
Alright, with that, maraming salamat po muli sa inyong oras and of course insights, Cocopea Legal Counsel, Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The first impeachment complaint against President Marcos has been transmitted to the office of House Speaker Bogie D. The Speaker has 10 days to include it in the order of business before it is referred to the House Committee on Justice. The complaint accuses the President of graft and corruption, culpable violation of the Constitution, and betrayal of public trust. Now, for more details on the filing of the second impeachment case against President Bongbong Marcos, we go to our mobile journalist, Arles de los Santos. Arles, ano naman whether the main allegations included in this second impeachment case against the President?
Angela at Diego, ngayong araw nga sinasampa na o inahahain na yung reklamo na ikalawang impeachment complaint laban kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos kung saan ang isa sa mga grounds niyan ay yung betrayal of public trust daw. Kaugnay pa rin yan ng mga alegasyon ng korupsyon at mga anomalya sa flood control projects ng pamahalaan mula 2022 hanggang 2025 kung saan nga raw yung may sistema ng kickback na kung saan nga yung Pangulo daw ay kasama sa mga tumatanggap nito sa pamamagitan ng ilan sa mga executive officials bago nga yung Pangulo, no? Pero ang malaking tanong dito, Angela, kung ano nga ba yung mangyayari dito sa reklamo na ito dahil nakalagay doon sa sa impeachment process na dapat yung impeachment ay ibibigay o ipapasa sa Office of the Secretary General, pero ngayong araw ay wala si Secretary General Gapil, no? Dahil nga ito ay lilipad sa Taiwan para tumanggap ng isang award. Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin yan, no, at least by the statement, no, na by the rules na dapat Office of the Secretary General yung tumanggap nito, hindi yung Secretary General mismo. Kaya ito, konting tour ko lang dito sa inyo, no? Dito kasi ngayon pumipirma na sila ng notaryo dito kung saan nga mga progresibong grupo, ang bayan at ilang mga personalidad yung maghahain nito, no? So nandito nga yung kanina pa lamang, no, mga alas 9 ng umaga, alas 8 rather ng umaga, nandito na sila, no? Bukod pa dyan, may mga alegasyon din dito na hindi raw dapat na magpatuloy na itong ganitong sistema at dapat daw mailagay yung tamang pondo para sa pagawaing bayan nang naaayon sa pangangailangan ng publiko.
Let's recap tayo ng konti. Kung di ko alam kung nabanggit mo, no? Sino yung mga ibang, aside from ng main proponents nito, sino yung ibang nakikita mong supporting figures na notable?
Nandito sina Liza Maza, Teddy Casino, Renato Reyes, Nery Colmenares, Mimi Doringo at ilang mga youth and church personalities, no? At ayan nga yung para sa ikalawang impeachment case laban kay Pangulong Marcos.
And do we expect other impeachment cases to follow for the president o ito na yung second and last?
Meron pang mga bulong-bulungan, Diego, na masusundan pa itong ikalawang impeachment case, no? May mga nagsasabi na meron din mga kaalyado daw ng vice-presidente yung magsasampa rin ng impeachment case. Pero ang lahat ng yan ay kailangan nating abangan kung aabot nga rin ba sa Office of the House of the Speaker and later on ay mapupunta doon sa plenaryo para pagdiskusyonan bago bigyan ng resolusyon at pagbotohan ng Kamara.
The other day, nakausap namin si Representative Tino regarding this second impeachment complaint to be filed nga kay President Bongbong Marcos. And he said, no, he mentioned to us na they're talking to other groups there sa House of Representatives na maaaring sumuporta sa kanila. Sa ngayon ba, meron ka na mga information regarding that?
Ito ay i-endorso yung pangalawang impeachment complaint ng Grupong Makabayan. Nakita na natin dito sina Representative Antonio Tino, gayon din ang Makabayan ang Kabataan Party List, no, na si Attorney Renico, at sila nga yung mag-e-endorso daw nitong verified impeachment complaint.
All right, thank you for that, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos.
DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla said former Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldico has supposedly reached out through priests to seek a possible dialogue. Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos with the story.
Almost 2 months since his last video drop, where he alleged a kickback scheme involving high-ranking officials and the 2026 national budget, resigned Congressman Zaldico has sent feelers for a dialogue with the government. At least that's according to the DILG Secretary.
Meron na siyang feelers na through sa mga ibang pare na kilala niya. Not exactly, parang nagpapakonect na gustong ng dialogue sa amin. So, pero of course that's not verified. Parang nagsabi pa lang, sinabi ng kaibigan na pinaparating.
Ko has an arrest warrant for corruption and malversation of public funds from the Sandigan Bayan over the poorly constructed road dike project in Auhan Oriental, Mindoro worth 289.5 million pesos. He is also accused of involvement in budget insertions and project kickbacks as high as 25 to 40%. According to the DILG chief, his brother, Ombudsman Boying Remulla, is willing to initiate the dialogue with COSCAP. But for now, verification is ongoing.
Alam ko lang may nagre-reach out. So, no exact personalities. Wala akong pangalan. Siyempre, we take them seriously. Yung gusto makapag-dialogue, kakausapin namin yan. Pero kung bribe, ay wag na. Wag na kami kausapin.
Authorities still believe Ko is in hiding in Portugal, which Remulla admits is not an easy matter as Portugal does not have an extradition treaty with the Philippines.
Pag before the issuance of the passport, pwede siya i-deport. Kung nasa kanya na yung passport, then he committed the crime. Then he has to be tried there. Criminal mind talaga. May escape route kaagad eh. Diba? Ang galing na escape route niya. Maaga pa lang Feb. 1 year na siya. Nasa 1 year na siya abroad. Hindi nakauwi dito.
For his part, Justice Secretary Frederick Vida is yet to receive news on Ko's fillers. But whether or not the dialogue will be conducted with Ko, Vida says such won't affect the complaints the former Ako Bicol Party List representative is facing.
We don't weigh evidences na wala naman doon sa proseso, no? So, pag sinabi mo lang fillers, paano makaka-apekto yon, di ba? Kasi siyempre, ang pagbabasihan ng ating mga piskal, ng ating mga prosecutors, na yung pag-evaluate ng iba't ibang pira-pirasong ebidensya, ay kung ano yung sinasubmit sa kanila.
Meanwhile, former DPWH Engineer Henry Alcantara's custody has now been transferred from the Senate to the Department of Justice's Witness Protection Program. But the DOJ refused to divulge Alcantara's exact location for his protection. The Justice Chief says Alcantara will still be able to attend Senate hearings.
Whenever necessary, no? Of course, the end here is really for cooperation, no? For our witnesses. At yun nga, kaya nga sila na-admit sa program eh. Di ba? Sila ay nakikipagtulungan sa ating pamahalaan para mapatibay ang mga kaso at magkaroon ng successful na paglilitis.
Other so-called state witnesses, former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo, former DPWH Regional Director Gerard Opolencia, and contractor Sally Santos are being strictly monitored by the DOJ.
Hindi pa po napapag-usapan kung saan sila i-house. Okay? So right now, they're at liberty to roam and to travel wherever they want. Diba? But of course, yung movement nila is strictly monitored by the WPP dahil kailangan po nila humarap eh. Diba? Kailangan po nila humarap bilang state witness eventually once trial commences.
Preliminary investigation is also ongoing on other complaints in connection to the flood control scandal. One of the respondents, Senator Joel Villanueva, was permitted more time to file his counter-affidavit. And the DOJ is soon to release subpoenas for former DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan and Senator Jinggoy Estrada. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Day 2 of the M7 World Championships knockout stage, round 2, is now underway. Yesterday, Philippines Aurora Gaming Philippines scored a big 3-1 win over Indonesia's Alter Ego. Let's get the latest from Mobile Journal, Amy Atienza. Amy, what do we expect in Day 2?
Nako, rainy and windy morning sa inyo, no, Angela Jeco. Nandito tayo ngayon sa Jakarta, Indonesia, kung saan nga aabangan natin kung ano nga bang mangyayari sa M7 World Championship. Considered kasi ang Pilipinas bilang the strongest region of the tournament dahil from the second season up until the sixth season last year ay sila ang kinikilala bilang best team in the world. At bukod nga dyan, syempre aabangan natin ngayong araw yung laban naman ng isa pang pambato ng Pilipinas na Team Liquid Philippines. Mamaya yan, 3 p.m. dito sa Indonesia at 4 p.m. naman sa Pilipinas para nga mag-qualify naman sa upper bracket. At yun nga, titingnan natin kung masusustain ba ng Philippines yung glory na meron sila. Pero yun nga, kung babalikan lang din natin yung nangyari kagabi, no? Aurora Gaming Philippines won it in 4 games. At syempre, hindi naging madali para sa kanila dahil home court advantage ito ng Indonesia. Kalaban nila ang Alter Ego Esports team kung saan nga napakaraming supporters din yung nakita natin from Indonesia na talagang sumuporta for the representative. At first game nakuha ng Pilipinas pero bumawi din agad ang Indonesian team. At nung third at fourth game may quick turnaround para nga maksungkit ng Pilipinas itong upper bracket slot at ma-advance sa final. So technically magtutuloy-tuloy ito hanggang January 25 para nga makita natin kung sino nga ba ang mag-uwi ng kampyonato dito sa M7 World Championships sa Jakarta.
Alright, thank you for that report. Mobile Journal, Amy Atienza. Oy, by the way, isa pang nagbigay karangalan sa Pilipinas, di ba? Sabi mo, nag-gold.
Yes,
sa
ang mga para-athletes natin sa ASEAN.
Sa ASEAN, sino nanalo ng gold?
Si Ernie Gawilan.
And that's in the...
Tapos si Gary Behino.
Ano ba si Ernie? Swimming.
Oo, mga swimming.
Congratulations sa mga athletes natin sa ASEAN Games, no? Oo, gold.
Tsaka alam ko sa basketball din meron mga babae. Ipamangkin mo. Si Camille.
Iba talaga ang Castro. Iba ang Castro Saan kami nagkakalat
So congratulations diba, sa ating mga para-athletes.
Si Yusek Claire Hindi ka mag-anak. Alright, that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro, third kapatid. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.